So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my full review of the Samsung Galaxy A70. Now, this is one of Samsung's budget phones this year, under 500. Actually, as a matter of fact, this one was under 400, and it comes with quite the specification on this device. Now, as someone who uses the S10 Plus, I feel like I compared in my mind these two a lot when experiencing the A70, just because I wanted to see, how much could they do for this price point, and I'm pretty impressed so far. So what I want to begin by talking about is my experience with the body and how the phone has felt in build quality. Now, on the back, we do have a plastic build, and overall, I gotta say that the phone felt pretty plasticky from the rear. Once you put a case on it, it doesn't really matter anymore, but I will say that it is a nice look though. Even though it's plastic, it is a nice look. It also feels very thin and extremely light. I mean, it's not the lightest phone out there, but 183 grams, plastic body, it feels like a lightweight large phone. Now at 6.7 inches, it never felt like a small phone, but in the hand, it has some pretty nice ergonomics as well, and the plastic's a little bit smooth. So overall, not the most premium feeling phone, but you wouldn't expect this at this price point. Large, thin, and light. That's about the best way I could describe the Galaxy A70 with a very large screen on the front. Now switching gears to the display. This display is really bright, I think, for this price point. Also really nice. Super amOLED, 16 million colors. It has plenty of resolution at 2400 by like 1080. So definitely sharp enough at 393 PPI. This is plenty sharp enough, I think, for the average user or the person who's going to be buying this thing. Now, if I go into settings, I go to display, you can see screen modes. We have vivid and natural, just like with the S10, S10 Plus. So kind of flagship-like display here, but not quite as sharp as the more premium models. But when it comes to watching video, like for example, the A70 or the A50, you can see that you get plenty of screen space here with the 6.7-inch panel. So just a beautiful media experience here. The bezel's a little bit thick down here, and you do have a little bit of a cutout there, but nothing too, in the way. I still would prefer an all screen, but still for this money, it's going to be kind of hard to get this much screen and this kind of package here, like what the A70 does offer. Also, when you're browsing the web and reading and stuff like that, you got plenty of space here to read up and down because it's a 6.7-inch display. So overall, this is probably one of the best reasons to buy this, is all this display you're getting for this money. Okay, so when it comes to the software, this is One UI, and basically Samsung has made this a little bit cleaner than before, and you have like more one-handed type stuff here on One UI. So if I do go to the phone dialer, for example, you could see things do come down to the bottom. You do have pop view still on here, split screen. There's no edge panels for the A70, so keep that in mind, but you still get your one-handed modes on this phone, as is very appreciated when you have a phone this large. Even the OnePlus 7 Pro doesn't give us stuff like that. In addition, you get things like NFC on this phone. You get the night mode that comes with One UI, making it really dark for when it's like late at night and stuff. It's really good on the eyes. Dolby Atmos is here. And overall, the Samsung experience with the Google apps combined, sometimes a little inconsistent because you got all these Google apps, all these Samsung apps. Bixby is here as well. And overall, different icons. There's not much more else to say about One UI. It's probably the best Samsung experience yet. And having this experience on the A70 is like having the same experience that I had on the S10 Plus. It's pretty much identical besides the edge panels, and maybe I can't do a wireless reverse charging through the phone's back because it doesn't support that. But other than that, I really do like the A70 software, and I think you will too. It runs pretty smooth on this mid-range processor. Okay, so moving on to performance, the Snapdragon 675 is here on this phone. That's an 11 nanometer CPU for this device. Now, is it slow? Absolutely not. Are you gonna get performance like a flagship? Not necessarily, but in everyday usage, it almost feels identical to that. So I gotta say that for the 675, for this money, it's plenty acceptable performance, but it's not the best for gaming as you only have the Adreno 612, not the best one on the market. It still works well in gaming and you can play things like PUBG, but don't expect the best frame rates. Don't expect the coolest phone under gaming. It does get a little bit warm. Other than that though, the phone has been fantastic in performance. For an everyday user, this kind of reminds me a lot of the Pixel 3a and just how it has that mid-range processor that just does the job. Now, because the Samsung One UI is a little bit heavier than a skin like that, I do think you run into stutters a little bit more often with the A70. But other than that, I really think for the money, most users in this segment are not going to be upset. It really didn't make me miss too much of what the S10 Plus offered, for example, besides when I really needed the extra little speed, which wasn't very often. So I'm pretty impressed with the setup with processor and RAM in here. I always thought Samsung phones needed 6 GB of RAM, and the A70 gives us that. And let me take a quick second to talk about the unlocking methods for this phone. You have an under display fingerprint sensor, but as you've seen right there, it doesn't always work as well as I would like. Now, some people are going to say, you're just supposed to tap it, bro. But you know what? Sometimes even when I just tap it, it still doesn't go in. So it's not the most consistent I've seen, but when you get it right, it's pretty cool to use here on the A70. It also has face unlock as well as patterns, pin codes, your usual Android stuff. And up here at this top portion, it's not anything secure. So if you do use face unlock, don't expect that to be your secure method. Authenticating with applications will have to be done through this in-display fingerprint sensor. Once you get the hang of it, I think you'll like the convenience of it since it rests right on the front. So if you have this thing on a table, for example, it's easy to just press that fingerprint sensor and open it up. Or if you're lying in bed, and you're laying the phone down on bed, for example, you can just quickly press that fingerprint sensor. So that's what I got to say about that. So overall, nice to have that feature like we have on the S10 Plus on this mid-range A70. Now, another thing I really like about the Galaxy A70 is that it gives us really good storage on board. Right off the start, this is 128 gigabytes for this phone. Plus you can expand the memory. So plenty of storage on board for the Galaxy A70. Also it charges and transfers through USB-C, which I do love because USB-C is the new standard. And that's great to see that here on the A70 as well. So let's talk about the camera with the A70. This is a triple camera that comes with 32 megapixels plus an 8 megapixel plus a 5 megapixel depth sensor. Now, depth sensors are really not super useful because you don't really get to play with them unless you do a portrait photo. But if you care about the blur in your background, you might like this. But the photo quality itself was actually quite good and rather impressive for this money, probably on par with some flagships from a couple of years ago, to be honest with you. So if we back it out, we do have the ultra wide angle here for the A70 and the typical Samsung software with your video mode, super slow-mo, slow motion, hyperlapse, and all the goodies that come from the other One UI phones out there. So nothing was very different there. Now this thing can take 4K video at up to 30 frames per second, so we get no 60 here. That's to be expected at this price point. 60 FPS, 1920 by 1080, so you can do 60 FPS there. You can see the front video also goes up to 1920 by 1080. That's a shortcut you make at this price point. Typically you get a little higher resolution on front-facing video in flagship phones. HDR, you can turn on your grid lines. You can see plenty of Samsung features here. But how is the front-facing camera quality? And I got to say that also has been pretty good on the Galaxy A70. I think it's a pretty nice wide angle as well. So for people who like to get a lot of people in their shot, the Galaxy A70 has a good front-facing camera for stuff like that. And with the expandable memory up to 1 terabyte, this really is a phone that can be a great mid-range camera phone for you. Take a look at some of my samples that I took with this phone and judge for yourself. here's a front-facing video test. Now with the Galaxy A70, when it comes to audio performance, one speaker. So that's never fun, but hey, that's what it is with this phone. When you do hear it though, you can see that it's plenty loud enough. It's just not great that you can easily cover that thing up. Now, at least they gave you Dolby Atmos, but that only works when you have headphones plugged in, but at least you have a headphone jack here for this device, so always appreciated that. So I gotta say, audio is kind of it doesn't have two speakers, but still with the headphone jack, it can make up for that for some people. Bluetooth 5.0 is here, so very fast Bluetooth connections, but at the same time, the audio is just kind of average from the speaker externally. So you might want to know about the battery life. A 4,500 milliamp hour battery in here, that is massive for this phone right here. That's kind of like what you get in the S10 5G. And how has it performed? And for me, it's been excellent. A little bit longer than the S10 Plus even, but not too much longer. I'd say about an hour, maybe an hour and a half better runtime than the S10 Plus. But the S10 Plus is also a really good battery life phone over here. So definitely, I would say, if you want a really great Samsung phone for battery life, this might be one to put on your list, as I'm getting at least 8 hours of screen time and definitely plenty of standby. Not better standby than I've seen on like the iPhone, for example, but still plenty of standby. And also this phone just really can go 2 days if you're a really not like super heavy user. A super heavy user though can even get through maybe a day and a half for even heavy users. So really impressed with the battery life, and it comes with a fast charger in the box, so you won't be left out there. But there's only one thing about this phone: there's no wireless charging. So if you like that, you're not getting it here with the A70. So when it comes to the call quality, it's been fantastic here on T-Mobile's network. I have 5 bars a lot of the time, and really I was impressed with the phone call quality on this phone. It was excellent. Never had any drop calls. Callers could hear me, I could hear them. That's kind of my test for, phone call quality. How many times do I get a drop call? How bad does a speaker sound? And none of it was bad, to be quite honest with you. I mean, is it the best I've ever seen? No, but it's excellent. So I have no complaints here or qualms with the phone call quality on the A70. So in conclusion, price to value, this phone's about $380, $400. Unfortunately, LTE bands don't work that well in the US, so I didn't have a great LTE experience. I was only running on HSPA Plus, so it wasn't the fastest there. So if you're in the US, I would wait to see if Samsung brings this thing officially to the US. But for other people out there where this phone is fully supported, give this thing a look. If you wanted like an S10 Plus, S10 5G, you love those phones, but that's just out of your budget right now, this is Samsung's answer for you, and it gives you 90% of that experience at half the cost. So the A70, as was the A50, a great phone. This is a great phone, 6 gigabytes of RAM, mid-range processor like the 3A XL, nice body here, triple camera, it's fun to use. This phone right here, definitely a winner if you want to use a Samsung phone, but you don't want to pay a flagship price for a Samsung device. You can also say, well, what about last year's S8, S9? These phones are coming down. Why would I get this thing right here? Well, if you want like a 2019 phone, that's why you would buy this. But if you want more premium, but you want to pay cheap, then still you can consider last year's devices. Anyway, do you have an A70? Leave your comments down below. Questions, concerns, also leave them down there. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to be well, and peace.